If you haven't seen it already, Lance McDonald released an incredible video showcasing a cutscene from Elden Ring of Miquella watering a seedling with his own blood, causing it to flourish and bloom. This is exactly as the item text describes, with Miquella watering the Halig tree with his own blood since it was a sapling, and it was gorgeous to witness. But what does it mean? Well, frankly, everything, and I'm not even exaggerating. It's the bloom of buds, as Gowry refers to them, the flower maidens upon their defeat, or death, that results in these fantastical and sacred trees, as seen with Melina and Melania, or like the small trees growing beneath the giant Miranda, potentially even the tree of the grandmother of the shaman flower village, or like Marika and Radagon, who themselves are within and seen sprouting from trees. And just like these twin flower maidens, it's twin flower maidens, like the ones we find at the foundations of the Halig tree, that are the foundations of the entire Great Tree network. This established phenomenon of the importance of twins is ceaselessly displayed in the motifs and architecture of almost every culture, displaying overtly with obvious comparisons, twin maidens literally dumping the contents of their wombs into the foundations of what would become a tree. This flower motif represents these twins, and the importance of these flower maidens to the growth and spread of the roots, and as the bounty of the canopy, and the cyclical, almost cannibalistic nature of the process. I would wager that's because, in the selective biological alchemy of trying to isolate certain aspects of the crucible, twins and birth, for what are in essence genetic mutations and melding, would be exceptional tools. This is seen in Renala, who is proficient in rebirth rituals and creates twins of varying aspects and abilities, and the ubiquitous presence of twins in each divine royal family. Even the twin great runes with varying abilities and compositions that comprise most of the Elden Ring, which is the Elden Beast. It's twin beasts that we see flanking this seedling that would one day become the Erd Tree, whose primordial form was a crucible, a carefully designed melding pot of life. If you consider the use of biological beings as alchemical tools, then the womb itself becomes a tremendously important tool as a biological crucible, within which life can be melded together. And this is reflected in the shaman jars, whose serpent-like womb snatches the player like the virgin abductors into their wombs, exactly akin to the way in which Rykard's serpent lunges at us. If we couple these depictions of twin serpentine flower maidens as the foundations of the trees, and the cross-cultural depictions of maidens pouring the contents of a jug that's held by their womb to the ground below them, with the Erd Tree's favour talisman, we begin to see a strong pattern of the biological processes of the womb and birth being used in rituals as a cross-cultural phenomenon. Like the duty and sacrifice of the deathbed companions. This is because, just as we see at the roots of the Erd Tree, or the seedlings sprouting from Empyrean blood, and exactly like the primordial form of the Erd Tree, and the colours that represent it, the cost of gold, of divinity, is blood. It's the faithful that make the faith, just like it's the Erd Tree followers who make the Erd Tree. Or sorcerers making a starseed, like the very structure of Ener Ilim, or Rykard and Godric. The same gold below is the same gold above, like the gold of the Golden Order being the same as the gold within lightning, or the life force below, being used to recreate the life force above. The dregs of divinity, if collected and purified, can be shaped and sculpted into the genuine article. I think this is echoed again in the Elden Patriarch's beard literally becoming the roots that continue through him, and into the ground, like Radagon's hair literally becoming his rune of order. That's the very foundation of the Elden Ring, which, if what Fia says holds any weight, is comprised of children, further supported by the fact the Amber Egg, this external god womb, is the rune of the unborn. To be honest, this is why when I first saw a comparison of Miquella and the original Elden Ring, hoisted above a praying maiden with a striking likeness to Miquella himself, I was happy to accept it, as this is just a further demonstration of this concept. And given the Elden Beast is the Elden Ring, the continued comparison between Miquella and this beast only furthered my acceptance, with the tale of this beast even bearing an exceptional likeness to the seedling Miquella created in this cinematic. The roots of divinity are, after all, mired in madness, and hair as a signifier of lineage, or our roots, is echoed more than once, like the fire giant's red hair, or Ymir's finger hair upon their transformation, or the likeness of Metyr to the original Elden Ring, where in place of Miquella's hair or roots are fingers, which are her roots, the two fingers as her children, who themselves are found by great runes, suspiciously alike to Fia and other matriarchal mothers. Children being used in the same way family and birth are, as tools in rituals, would appear to be almost natural to the world of Elden Ring, given the many examples were given in the fetishes, living jars, and baby batteries that the Catacomb priests presumably use to exist as they do, or the ones attached to the leg of the soldiers in the giant tree crypt of Elfale, or the innumerable young girls on coffins that we see in Raya Lucaria, in place of the once numerous Carian princesses. The seedling seen in the cinematic is an exact match to the tree depicted on the Halig tree medallion, of what, in my opinion, is the tree that existed here before Miquella coppiced the Halig tree onto it. The very same tree, I would argue, that is depicted with a family tree of me, of 8 old men, like the cross-cultural patriarch, whose likeness we last see embedded into a tree at the belfries, which link most of the major cultures of Elden Ring, and the bearded twin kings leading to the consecrated snowfield, whose apron shows a depiction of an ancient tree, with far-stretching roots and twin birds perched on either branches, or snakes, at its foundations, with 2 trees comprising the roots. Just like the tree flanked by twin birds in the ancient dynastic ruins, who share the same pots as the catacombs and hero graves by the roots, which share the same tree birth and seedling motifs as the bottom half of the Halig tree. I believe this is the original tree of the north, as shown on the front of the Erd tree at the very top, the one we see crowned by this mysterious object, from the ancient ruins to the capital cities, which, like the depictions at Elfale, have what almost seems to be a family tree. I've previously extensively explored why and how Elfale existed before the Halig tree, which I believe to be coppiced onto the remains of this ancient tree. In this video, I explored all of the finer details of the differences between the top and lower half, which are separated not by a fancy elevator, but a ladder, with obvious architectural differences between the 2 distinct portions. But the main point today that I want to draw attention to is that what we see in the lower section is the same as what we see flying in the sky. A giant crypt, like Farum Azula. And if you've seen my Farum Azula bird nest theory, you'd understand why that matters. Again, you can see the details here, but the short version is that it's my belief that whatever tree existed here before the Halig tree, the one presumably destroyed by a meteor, which I theorize is the one that struck Farum Azula, which we find nearby at a similar trajectory to the one that destroyed the eternal city of Noxtella, was originally crowned by Farum Azula, resting in this arc where the bounty, or souls, is said to pool, with the roots spreading downward throughout the lands between, exactly like the original Elden Ring. The bounty that pools in the rune arc, both drawn through the roots and ferried by the waters, to the grand mausoleum and sacred consecrated lands. Guided by the red miasma of the Helfen and the light of the mariners to the place we find Helfen's steeple and snow, or rather solid water, so suffused with spirits that they manifest from it. The Miranda staff is a symbol of royalty and divinity, given that the flowers call the benediction of the heavens, and is seen as the foundations of the Erd tree on Laendel's flags. And we see its likeness throughout the game in places of importance with varying design changes. Its final form, wilted and dead, is found on this deceased maiden, set on a coffin exactly like the ones the sacrificial maidens of Raya Lucaria are found on. The same maidens who originate from a castle with the same royal depictions and motifs as Farum Azula, and who share an outfit with the twin-head masters of the academy that respects the twin crown as a sign of their elite, like the Nox and their twin crown being indicative of their highest clerical rank, or the specifically 2 fingers on the crown of the ancient dragons, on every single statue of them, without exception. These roots dig deep, and the boughs of this grand tree network reach as high as the heavens. The maiden at the bottom of Elfale is missing its lower half, as if the contents of its womb were expelled as the foundations of this great tree. A bud sacrifice, as per statues found throughout the lands between, venerating this very act. Hoisted on a stump akin to Marika and Radagon, holding a bud on what looks to be a death-right spear, the weapon we find right by Elphael, and the depictions in Elphael itself, of a maiden nursing this same bud. The sacrifice of the maidens, or buds, as the foundations of the roots, is so pervasive it's ubiquitous and is represented in the catacombs and hero graves by the roots, as a depiction of a seedling, the very one flanked by twin beasts, whose central motif is the same one that's found on elevators, the device that literally ascends and descends. The center of a bud which is clutched between 8 fingers. From the heights of astrologers' risers and those who study the stars, to the depths of the catacombs and hero graves where the deepest roots are buried, and even beyond to the depths of the eternal cities, and as far back as the ancient dynastic ruins, on the pillar at the center of the lands between. And again in the 2 locations where we find great trees, the bud, bounty of the womb, the contents of which are spilled to nourish the roots and build the network that would be the foundations of divinity, just like the bounty of Metyr's womb, flanked by 8 fingers like the reliefs on the elevators, which both nourished and comprises the Elden Ring. My next video is an hour-long deep dive into this very topic, where I will be showcasing several times more than what I've shown here to reinforce and flesh out the points to their fullest. If you enjoyed this video, then you'll love the one that comes next. I've been working on it for over a month and collecting the material for years, but this brutally timed discovery convinced me a short introduction might go a long way for those unwilling to watch an hour. But I assure you, you will not want to miss what I've put in that video. The things here are just the tip of the iceberg, so consider subscribing, and if you do, buckle up. Thanks to my patrons and YouTube members for supporting the channel. Your contributions help immensely with trying to maintain consistent uploads,